NASA employees are still working on critical missions despite being unpaid during the government shutdown. Managers and engineers are working on things like the International Space Station as well as the SpaceX launch that's scheduled for the beginning of February.
But as the government continues to remain partially closed, NASA's projects could face slowdowns or could stop altogether. Bill Harwood is our CBS News space consultant here to talk a little bit more about that. So, Bill, how many NASA employees are actually still working?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. The agency employs about 17,700 civil servants, and of that total, only 437 or so are considered accepted personnel, meaning they're accepted to continue working without pay. There's another 660 or so part-time workers. So you've got, I don't know, 1,100 out of that 17,600 employees who are still on the job, but they're not getting paid. They're just doing, you know, what you said. They're operating the International Space Station, the Hubble Space Telescope. You know, the list goes on and on and on, but no pay.
Wow. So, Bill, what could happen to these critical missions if the government shutdown continues?
Well, you know, the government takes into account things that would cost a lot of money or be irreparably harmed if you simply shut them down. For example, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, a big telescope in orbit, has been there for a long time. They initially considered putting that in what's called safe mode, basically just shutting it down with the idea you'd come reactivate it later, but they decided, no, you really can't do that because that could lead to other problems down the road that might be, you know, non-recoverable. So they have an entire list of spacecraft like that operational that are already in space or being processed on the ground to meet a specific launch window. That if you simply stopped working on it, it would incur way more cost than keeping the part-timers on the job.
Wow. And, you know, NASA also employs a lot of contractors. What we haven't really discussed with this shutdown is, you know, employees will get back paid. The contractors are really sort of out of luck. What's happening with them?
Oh, that's a really good question, and you're exactly right. The civil servants will get their pay eventually, but the contractors won't. And a lot of these contracts start running out right now. Multiple contracts this week, next week, the week after, and into early February. These are companies that would normally have expected payments from NASA, but that money's not flowing. So in some cases, you're going to have companies asking workers to continue on the job without pay. But unlike the government, those workers will not get their money back. It's a desperate situation for a lot of people. I met a husband and wife that I know at a local breakfast place down here 2 days ago. One works for NASA, one works for a contractor, and neither one of them have any money coming in. They got 2 kids in college, and you can just imagine what kind of stress is being put on their life.
Wow.
I can only imagine, because credit agencies don't care whether or not there's a government shutdown in effect. If you're not paying and you're not paying in a timely fashion, there goes your credit rating. That has long-term implications for families and for individuals. So let me ask you about this, Bill. There's a long-awaited test flight of SpaceX's crew, the Dragon spacecraft. That's supposed to happen in the beginning of February. What would happen to this scheduled test as well as other NASA tests if the government shutdown continues?
Well, that's a really good question, Vlad. You know, the NASA claims, or they say, that the personnel are in place among those who are still on the job without pay to carry out a flight readiness review, to do all the safety reviews that are required before this mission takes off. This is a critical flight, as you know. This will be the first launch of a new rocket and spacecraft designed to carry astronauts to the International Space Station and end NASA's reliance on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. This first flight coming up, it's right now scheduled for February 9. It's an unpiloted test flight, but it's critical to pave the way for the first flight with astronauts on board early this summer. NASA says that this launch can proceed in the government shutdown, but it's anybody's guess if it actually would. There's a lot of politics involved in a flight that important, and they might want to wait around until the full up complement's there to dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
Yes, no doubt about that. Bill, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You can read Bill's full article, Unpaid NASA Workers Protect Critical Missions During Government Shutdown, on our website, cbsnews.com.